Hello, this is Brian. Today is Saturday, March 13th, 2021. I'm in the Santa Ynez Mountains above Lake Elsinore around the Orange and Riverside County line, and I want to present a spotlight on shrubs video today. And today's spotlight is on a plant that you'll find commonly in disturbed sites and sometimes in openings in sage scrub and chaparral. It's called Thickleaf Yerba Santa, and this is Eriodictyon crassifolium, variety crassifolium. It's a member of the Borage family, the Boraginaceae. So it's related to plants like Phacelia. It's related to popcorn flowers in the genus Plagiobothris. It's related to fiddlenecks in the genus Amsynchia, and a lot of these plants are annuals. And then we also got the genus Eriodictyon, which has the Yerba Santa group. So Thickleaf Yerba Santa is a medium to very tall shrub, evergreen in nature. Its leaves may look a little more dehydrated during the driest time of the year, like summer through mid-fall. It might look kind of grayish and dehydrated. Well, it's an adaptation for this plant to survive the droughtful conditions that occur on a yearly basis here. So Thickleaf Yerba Santa, the Latin name crassifolium means thick leaf. So if you look here, you can tell these leaves are thick, very thick, and they're very woolly and pubescent with lots of hair on them. Very hairy leaves. They also call it hairy leaf Yerba Santa too sometimes. So again, it's an evergreen shrub, and it's not an extremely strongly woody shrub, not like scrub oaks and birch leaf, mountain mahogany and chamise, but it is woody to a lesser degree. So it's a little more brittle, and the plants are easier to break. So the Yerba Santa means sacred plant, holy herb in Spanish, and these plants, this genus of plants is often referred to as a medicinal group of plants. I am not sure specifically about Eriodictyon crassifolium variety crassifolium, but some varieties were used to make, I believe, make teas and salves, and helped dress wounds and stuff like that. That's why they call it sacred plant, holy herb. So the genus Eriodictyon, like I said, has these type of shrubs, and basically they're not very strongly woody, like I said, pretty brittle. And one member of the genus is actually more of a perennial subshrub as opposed to a full-blown shrub like these. So here in the Santa Ynez, you will be likely to find Thickleaf Yerba Santa along roadsides, along disturbed sites, as in this area having been disturbed by the 2018 Holy Fire. So these plants here might have been here before the Holy Fire. These guys here look like they've been around for several years. I'm not sure. I don't get the impression that they're extremely long-lived, like chamise and scrub oak and birch leaf mountain mahogany, but I imagine they could be around for probably a while, maybe a decade or two. That's just a guess. And their stems are kind of hairy too. They're kind of fuzzy. It looks like they're kind of whitish, but underneath the hairs, there's kind of a little reddish, brownish, like grayish texture as well. It's just that the stems are very puberulent. In other words, fuzzy. So, why is Thickleaf Yerba Santa so gray colored? Well, I was kind of mentioning earlier that Yerba Santa grows in very drought susceptible areas, in places that are dry for a huge chunk of the year. This gray coloration is mostly due to the whitish hairs on the leaves. The whitish hairs on the leaves protect the leaves themselves from too much insolation during the dry parts of the year, which would evaporate the moisture out of the leaves really quickly, which is, you know, then in the summer you got a high sun angle, it doesn't rain, it's hot, it's very dry, so the leaves kind of have that fuzziness on them to kind of hold in a little bit of the humidity that would otherwise be lost through the transpiration of the foliage. So that's why we have these looking so grayish. In fact, as I was mentioning earlier, they look a lot grayer and dehydrated during the late summer and fall months after it hasn't rained for a very long time. So actually, they go from looking like this, and they're only moderately hydrated this year because of the lack of consistent rainfall this winter. We live in a summer dry, winter wet climate, Mediterranean climate. So sometimes they'll kind of look like this a little bit during the driest part of the year, kind of dehydrated. This looks like a branch that broke off, so it's dying, but the leaves won't be quite as wrinkly, but they will be very similarly colored, even more of a whitish gray. The range of this shrub, I know it's very common here in Southern California, but the rest of the range I'll put in the description. I've seen it here. I've seen different varieties of this plant. This one is variety crassifolium, but I've also seen variety nigrescens, Eriodictyon crassifolium variety nigrescens. I've seen that over by Liebre Mountain, by the Liebre Mountain area. You'll find variety nigrescens and other spots here in Southern California. So we get a couple varieties of this plant. So in the spring months, they have these attractive purple tubular shaped flowers that are actually quite showy. And on a very warm day, you can actually smell the Yerba Santa. It's quite an aromatic plant. This smell will waft in on a warm breeze. I don't smell it too strongly right now because it's maybe about, I'd say about 45 degrees right now where I am. It's a nice cool afternoon, but on warm days you can smell this plant and other species of Yerba Santa. So again, the form of this plant is medium, quite tall. It can get way over your head. I've seen it as high as maybe about 8 to 10 feet tall. And again, April and May, beautiful tubular purple flowers that come on these clusters at the end of the twigs that are very showy, quite extravagant. I think one of the showiest of the Yerba Santas in the genus Eriodictyon. And I will come back to another species, a couple other species momentarily, but you can see this one here, that's an old dried seed head. So the flowers form on these clusters, and then they dry up and then they form these little mini capsules, and then the seeds are in those little capsules and they're kind of fuzzy and kind of crinkly. So Thickleaf Yerba Santa has some relatives here in Southern California and further north. Here in Southern California, we also have Eriodictyon trichocalyx, and we have at least two varieties. Variety trichocalyx, or subspecies trichocalyx, and then variety lanatum. Variety lanatum, I believe I've seen over by Mount Laguna, and variety trichocalyx I've basically seen everywhere else. So I'm going to go back here. So it didn't look quite as disturbed there, but if you go further in on this little old abandoned roadbed, you'll see how they colonize disturbed sites with vigor. These can be very, very fast growing plants, and they're colony forming, so they can form huge populations. Smell a little bit here right now. It's a pretty pleasant smelling plant. It kind of has a smoky / aroma. It can be quite intense on warm, breezy days. It can be very intense smell. But the beautiful purple flowers they have on it, this would be a cool plant to grow in your garden. Like I said, watch out, it might take over. and this re-sprouting hillside here. And they love disturbed sites. They love fire. Fire is good for germinating them. I believe fire scarification is a good way to get them to come up. And mechanical disturbance of the soil. If you're driving in the Angeles National Forest, you'll see tons of these along Angeles Crest Highway. You'll see them sometimes along up here too. So, good old Thickleaf Yerba Santa. So, back to the related plants. You have Eriodictyon trichocalix, and you have varieties trichocalix and variety lanatum here in Southern California. Much different looking plant. Much different looking plant. It is also a fire follower. It will germinate after fire and also mechanical damage. That's the soil. The soil getting tilled up and cut in for road cuts and stuff. That'll get them to come up too. So that plant is a lower growing, usually only a couple feet tall, usually not really much taller than this, except on when they get older, and they can get up to maybe about 3 or 4 feet, but usually they're pretty short and they're kind of on the ground. But they're similar structurally in the sense that they're the way they branch, the way they love colonizing sites. They form huge colonies on burnt sites. Angeles National Forest has tons of that one. But the major difference, besides the height factor, that this shrub, crassifolium, is much taller, is that the leaves are much different on both Yerba Santas. Eriodictyon crassifolium, grayish, greenish, bluish, fuzzy. The trichocalix species, the top of the leaves are very greasy, kind of medium to dark green, kind of greasy looking. They got a lot of, kind of look oily on the top of the leaves. Very shiny, very shiny. And their flowers are white, and they're not quite as conspicuous as crassifolium is. And I've yet to do a spotlight on that one too. This is my first ever Eriodictyon spotlight. So obviously I will be finding Eriodictyon trichocalix and spotlighting that, hopefully when it's in bloom. I wanted to see this plant in bloom, but it's a little early. April's your best bet. But I was really desperate to get a spotlight on trees in, or spotlight on shrubs in today. So that's why I just went for it. And of course, when I do my hikes in the spring, when I come across this plant in bloom, I'll most certainly film it and refer you back to the spotlight video. But yeah, here's a close-up of the seed heads. And you can see, you get these little kind of like little capsule-like fruits with little tiny seeds in them. And the seeds are in the soil right now, waiting for the next disturbance. Who knows? Who knows when that'll be? Okay, so I talked about, so trichocalix, they kind of have like these little rounded, they look like kind of like little rounded fruits, and then they're like little capsules that open up with the seeds in them. But they look kind of similar. The structure is similar. It's kind of like on these clusters here. So, and then there's one other very notable plant here in Southern California that is closely related. It used to be in a different genus, but now it's been merged into Eriodictyon, and it's called poodle dog bush, Eriodictyon perryi, formerly known as Terricula perryi. And that one is the subshrub / perennial. That one does not live quite as long. And again, it's another fire follower. It colonizes fire scars and also disturbed sites, just like Yerba Santa. So, I mean, taxonomical and DNA analysis, I guess they revised it and put it in the genus Eriodictyon. So poodle dog bush also does the same thing. It's quite an upright plant, kind of like Yerba Santa, but not as shrubby, not as bushy. Well, it gets kind of bushy. I don't know what I'm saying there, but their leaves are quite narrow, and they're also pretty hairy, like Eriodictyon crassifolium. Their leaves are the narrowest out of the three, and they have these hairs that have glands that have, I believe, oils, essential oils have phenolic compounds or something like that. And if you get hairs injected into your skin, you will likely end up breaking out into a rash wherever you made contact with the plant. And your pet will carry poodle dog bush oil, so that's a plant to avoid. It's upright. Its leaves are usually medium to darker green, kind of like the Eriodictyon trichocalyx, but it's a lot more upright than Eriodictyon trichocalyx, a little bit more along the lines of this one, but it's much hairier, and it has a very striking, beautiful flower, beautiful purple flowers on poodle dog bush. And the smell of the plant is very strong, and it carries for some distance, even more so than Yerba Santa. You'll smell that one even further away, but instead of having a really generally pleasant aroma, poodle dog bush kind of also has a sweetish, but it's also to some people kind of sickly, kind of sweetish, sickly aroma that can be quite overpowering when plants bloom. And or just even when the plants are just growing out of the dirt, because their resins are very strong. So again, now I know I went a little off topic describing some of its relatives. Normally I focus my spotlights on the plants at hand, but back to our beautiful Thickleaf Yerba Santa. It's a relatively short-lived shrub in the Boraginaceae, the Borage family. I believe in the Waterleaf group. It used to be in the Hydrophyllaceae, the Waterleaf family, but that family's been merged into Boraginaceae. Kind of medium-sized to sometimes quite tall shrub. Hairy leaves that help reduce transpiration on dry sites when the sun is strong and very evaporative. So that's what you get with Eriodictyon, crassifolium, crassifolium. Again, likes disturbed sites. You can see a lot of it was mowed over here, probably by the Forest Service, cleaning the side of the road. I do want to show you something else. The Yerba Santa when it gets older. Like I said, they're not really strongly woody plants, so they're quite brittle. But there was a spot where I could see an older trunk specimen around here. Let's see if I can find it. It'd be interesting to find it. It's that older trunk over here. Well, that's what the trunks look like when they get older. Again, it's woody, but it's not strong. And sometimes they can get a kind of a reddish trunk too sometimes when they get older. But this whole area is covered in Yerba Santa. It's all over here. All up down this hill. This grayish color, most of this is Yerba Santa. Yerba Santa. Here's an older plant, relatively older plant that got knocked over. You can see the trunk kind of has a grayish, sometimes a slightly reddish color at the base. And here's one of its relatives right here, branching Phacelia, Phacelia ramosissima. That's one of its relatives in the Boraginaceae. Like I said, these plants can be quite vigorous, and on disturbed sites you'll see them popping up like crazy. Well, I'm guessing that's going to do that for this spotlight. I know it was a little longer-winded. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope you've been able to now identify this cool species in our chaparral sage scrub climate from sea level to, I believe, 6,000 feet, maybe a little bit higher. Again, Thickleaf Yerba Santa, Eriodictyon crassifolium, variety crassifolium. This is Spotlight on Trees and Shrubs. Brian saying thanks for watching, and see you on the next episode.